Yeah, that's better.
Hey,
Yeah.
we are live, man. I'm so happy to be in another hotel today.
You're in another hotel?
Honestly, I've been in hotels so much, I just decided to design my house to look like a hotel room. So ironically, I'd feel more at home when at home.
Or why don't you just sell your house and stay at really nice hotels?
That's a really good idea. I'm going to think about that right now.
I'm Anthony. Welcome to No Vacancy Live. That's my friend Glenn.
You're watching the #1 show in hospitality. Everybody, welcome to the one and only No Vacancy Live. We've got Anthony Melchiori in the house. I'm Glenn Hausman, and today we're going to have a fantastic conversation with the Chief Innovation Officer of our friends over at the Transportation Security Administration. You know them, the TSA. But first, Anthony, how are you today?
I am well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I've been traveling so much. Oddly enough, not on this trip, I didn't take an airplane. I actually took my car to the ferry across the Long Island Sound up to the New England area. So I miss getting to say hello to all of my friends over at the TSA, but more than 2.2 million people got to say hello to them.
Well, you know, I haven't traveled on a plane in about 3.5 weeks, and the TSA sent me a letter seeing if I was okay.
Yeah, that's I love that they have that program. Where is Anthony? Why is he not flying with us this week? All right. So one of the things about the Transportation Security Administration is they're continuing to innovate. They're trying to make our lives a little bit easier while making sure each and every one of us is safe and feels confident to travel. And I've been having a lot of fun, Anthony, watching some of the new technologies get installed, seeing some of these new machines that are being put in. And there's so many other interesting things that we're going to get to talk about, but I'm sure you found going through security, particularly with PreCheck and their partnership with Clear, has been very helpful for you, right?
Yeah, people complain sometimes it's such a hassle. Listen, you got to know before you go, right? You got to know what the procedures are. You got to know what your opportunities are being in PreCheck or being in Clear and spending a little extra money, getting there way early. As you know, I'm a very early airport getter. Yep. I get there 2 to 3 hours before. And then if you get there, I've traveled more than most people I know, and I, knock wood, don't have any nightmare stories to talk about, about any problems.
No, neither do I. And I'm sure we're going to hear lots of great stories today. So let's bring him on, Mr. Stephen Parker. So excited to see him, Chief Innovation Officer of the TSA, who's been in this role since the top of the year. Stephen, thanks so much for being here today. Really appreciate it.
Good afternoon, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Let me jump right into one innovation that I'm seeing advertised at JFK. Now, I was just showing off how I have Clear and PreCheck, so it doesn't apply to me. But you could register now what time you're going to be there and get a special access to lines over there, even if you're not in the PreCheck program, right?
That's right. Well, some airports have reservation lanes, and I think
you have that in Atlanta too, where you're located.
That's right. And LAX. LAX is actually where I saw it first. But we've got Denver, DFW, JFK, Newark. And so you can actually call ahead and reserve your spot in line.
Yep. That's pretty cool. I should do that for my family. So that way they don't feel bad when I ditch them because I got PreCheck.
Yeah, I didn't know that happened. You can have that? I didn't realize that.
Yeah, airports do that. That's not something that we offer, but it is one of the programs that airports do offer.
So before we go into the TSA and all that, how long have you been in this job? How did you get this job? And what is your background?
Okay. I onboarded in December, started January 2nd. I think I was traveling with the administrator that first week that I came on. So really got to hit the ground running. Prior to this, my duty station is Atlanta, and I'm actually from California, but I moved to Georgia, and I was working as the political director on the John Ossoff for Senate campaign. He won. And so then I transitioned over to the official side and was his deputy state director in charge of stakeholder engagement. Cool. So I did that. And prior to that, like I said, I'm from California, had a background in working for elected officials. And I'm also a corporate litigation attorney, guys.
Oh, That's pretty cool. So what makes public service appealing to you? Because you're in a cool job, but you're also part of an organization that people just love to criticize because, you know, they got to fill ink in columns in newspapers.
I think it was my parents who instilled in me this notion of giving back, serving our community. And so from being in junior high and high school, where I was student body president and class president of all my classes, student body president of my community college, of my university.
Awesome.
It's just sort of in my DNA to find an opportunity to do something that's going to help make our society, our communities better. So it's just kind of been in me.
Well, I was in a fraternity. Now I feel it was pretty weak compared to what.
Well, you all serve too. Fraternities have service days as well.
Yeah, serve beers to party goers. That's about it.
So what are the responsibilities of the chief innovation officer? I know it seems simplistic, innovate, but what does that mean? Does that mean technology? Does that mean customer service? Because with your background, it's not an MIT background. So I would think when you see chief information officer or innovation officer, I'm thinking computers.
Yeah, it's not so simplistic. In fact, we've had to have conversations around what exactly are we trying to achieve as an agency by creating this role. And the role is primarily one that is a sort of a culture change role. So my job as the administrator reminds me and reminds those who are with us when he introduces me is not to do innovation, but to create an environment where innovation can thrive. So our primary thrust is to find a way and create pathways for our workforce who are on the front lines encountering passengers or uncomfortable uniforms or schedules that don't work or technology that's not that may or may not perform as they'd like, get their input and create a pathway for it to get to headquarters so that we can always stay on the cutting edge. So it's primarily creating this culture where the workforce feels like that they have a say and can participate in innovation at the agency. And then secondly, it is in fact to find ways to get emerging tech into the agency and find ways to adjust our policies, some of our procedures so that we're more innovative and operating more streamlined. How's that?
That's great. And we're going to be talking a lot about some of those things. We got some slides that you provided with us that we've selected a few that we like as conversation topic. But before we get into that, Stephen, one of the things that I think is great, you know, obviously the TSA started after the terrorist attacks on 9/11, et cetera, really changed the way security was being done. Now the airports themselves, I think, are starting to catch up in terms of infrastructure. I fly Delta all the time. I'm thinking about all the new terminals that they've been building, and with that opportunity, creating a security screening areas that actually give you the room to breathe, the room to do what you need to do, while also allowing you to have enough space to test some of these things, I would assume. Well,
that's right.
Yeah. So
that's right.
I'm going to bring up the first slide here, and then I'll let the producers take it over from there. But on average, 2.3 million people are being screened daily. And as I said at the top of the show, it was 2.1 yesterday. The day before that, 2.6. And you guys now are consistently seeing more passenger throughput than in 2019, according to the numbers that I'm looking at today. How does that feel, and what kind of challenges is that presenting you that you're hoping innovations will be able to alleviate in some sense?
Well, fortunately, we can sort of look at the trends over the years and see that we do have an uptick in the amount of passengers being screened. In fact, I'll give you another most recent figure of in fiscal year 2023, we screened a total of 838 million passengers. And so with that, what's critical is a relationship between TSA and the airports to be able to plan for increased throughput. We're only going to see more travelers as we go on, and so we are constantly working with our airport partners and our airline partners to always be thinking about, you know, when they're considering expanding the airport, we're having conversations with them about the latest scanning technology that will come in, the kind of space that we need, and so there's a great coordination happening there.
You know,
Asheville, North Carolina they just knocked down part of their old terminal. They're just starting the new one. So that's like a perfect example. They probably worked with you folks in order to figure out.
Absolutely. Hand in glove. That's right.
Yeah, exactly. Anthony, sorry.
No, that's fine. When you think of TSA, you think of the person helping you through the line. And by the way, I almost punched somebody in the back of the head the other day when they were nasty to a TSA agent that wasn't doing anything but their job.
Right.
And he went off and he called her a bad word. And I took every ounce of me not to cause a problem, but I just didn't want to get myself in trouble, so I just stayed out of it. But it was like, why do you have to be rude? But anyway, when you think of TSA, that's what you think of. You think of getting through the gate to the gate. But you say 4 million miles of roadways, 140,000 miles of railroads, approximately 612,000 bridges, and 3.3 million miles of pipeline. How does TSA get involved in that? Because I'm not really familiar with that part of the TSA.
Yeah, so TSA's mission is to protect our transportation systems. We're most known, of course, for aviation because that's where a large amount of our workforce is. But we also have security responsibilities for freight rail, for pipeline, for highway and motor carriers, for the mass transit and passenger rail. We don't have
right?
Say again.
Cruise terminals as well, I believe.
Well, up to a point, but
at a different part of Homeland Security.
That's right. That's right. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Air cargo, and so our responsibilities for security are with those transportation lines as well. However, most of it is through guidance and regulations around security. So you don't see TSOs at mass transit and passenger rail stations or guarding freight rails. But our
marching up and down 3.3 miles of pipeline.
That's right. We are not doing that.
One guy.
But we work very closely with those industries on policies that affect them, and we've got very good working relationships there. But you will see the majority of our workforce in aviation.
Yeah, Anthony.
No, I'm good.
All right. Yeah. All right. So I want to go on. Let's bring up the next slide here that we want to go to. All right. So the traveler experience. So for those of you going to be listening to the audio feed, we've got a slide here with a lot of different touch points during the traveler experience, from reservation to check-in to bag drop, through the checkpoint, the lounge, boarding, and then takeoff. So how do you see this, Stephen?
Yeah, our primary focus is around the checkpoint. So, folks make their reservations and then they make their way to the airport, the public side of the airport. It is when they enter, not the queue, but actually encounter our folks where they're showing their identification and then moving beyond that point. So from the travel document checker, and that's that station where you first encounter us, through the station where you put your bags at the scanner system, and then you walk through the metal detectors. That section alone is ours. So that's where we are primarily focused.
But you must, because we're looking at a biometric roadmap here, but you're working in concert with the airlines, for example, to make sure that you have that information. And I'm sure there's a lot of stuff going on behind the screens that I'm not thinking about when I'm making a reservation or when I'm checking in at the counter.
That is correct. So we have Secure Flight, which is a platform and program that we use to verify the folks who are flying. And it's at that stage that we will note if there's any flags that need to be identified on any traveling passengers. So that happens several days prior to the person actually getting on their flight.
Right.
So, yeah, I imagine you also work very closely with authorities that if somebody's getting on the plane, we may want to talk to those people. When are we getting to the point where I can walk through basically an area that doesn't even look like there's anything there, kind of like when you go through a toll booth, and with my bags, and you can scan me and scan my bags as I'm just walking through the terminal? How many years are we away from that?
Hold up 1 second, because I'm Dave. I'm just on producer Dave. I'm skipping ahead to this. To another slide over here. Here. All right. Sorry, Stephen. Go for it.
All right. Well, that's certainly where we expect to go. It's hard to kind of suggest what year we'll hit that. But often when I'm doing a keynote or addressing folks, I will tell folks, imagine it's 2050 or some other hypothetical time in the future where this the hypothetical will make sense. And it is one where you have your driverless taxi come and pick you up on time. If you're a frequent user of that company, perhaps they already are auto-tuned to have your NPR or your favorite radio station going as you're driving to the airport. Maybe you don't take the taxi to the airport, but you take it to the local air taxi depot, and you take that and get to the airport. You bring your bags in. Everything is contactless, where you are able to step up and show your face. AI confirms you are the person who is registered. You get your bag tag. You tag your bag. You place it on the conveyor belt, and then you walk toward where the checkpoint is. And what you will find there, maybe, this is all, of course, hypothetical, is these 3 huge tunnels. One says known traveler, one says normal, one says enhanced, and your name and your gate will appear. You'll know which one to walk through, and you'll be able to just carry your carry-on bag right through with you, and it'll be able to scan your bags, and you'll proceed to your gate, where, again, you'll present your face like I had to do. I recently went to Incheon, South Korea, on that international flight, and when I got to the gate, all I had to do was scan my face, and it confirmed that I was who I said I was on my with the boarding pass that I had submitted, and I was able to walk right on the plane. So when will we get there, Anthony? I don't know. I gave you 2050. Let's stick with 2050. And
that's it. I like that idea. And Anthony, let me just add. Last week I took a flight. And I was about to board the plane, and I had my boarding pass, but it scanned my face and it said, boop, okay. And I was able to just walk on. So,
and I think that's where everything's going to. And it should be. I mean, I should be able, somebody said, I don't want my face scanned. Listen, you're going to get my face somewhere. I think I'm a little bit, I'm a little bit on social media. So you're going to find me somewhere. So, I was just playing with something that, I was, again, about AI and technology, and nobody wants to go forward. Everybody wants to go forward, but nobody wants to go forward. So I tried something. I have this reel, and I tried to do a voiceover of my reel. I wrote the content, and I just put it in AI, or someone helped me put it in AI, and then they did the voiceover of the reel. I could have easily done the voiceover. It's simple to do. I wrote it. That was more work than recording it. But I said, let me try the AI. And we tried it, and it was sent to me. And I was like, it sucks. Yeah. I was like, it doesn't sound like me. It sounds a little bit like me. It sounds like me, but I went to Harvard. And it doesn't have my cadence. It has more of, it just didn't sound like, it sounded like a lot smarter to me. So my point being is it's all coming, right? So eventually I'll probably be doing it that way. It's all coming. It's just a matter of time.
That is right. And listen, I was with the administrator at South by Southwest earlier this year, and he did a panel, and one of the reporters asked him about whether biometrics is or will be required. And the administrator said, yeah, right now you can opt out, but at some point you won't be able to. And so at the end of it all these reporters rushed him and said, sir, did you say that we're all going to be required to use biometrics? And he said, well, yes, that's where we're headed. It's more secure, and we have ways to secure privacy, and it improves the customer experience to be able to move people through with more speed. So that's where we're headed.
It's just interesting. If you went and interviewed the people that got off the horses and got into cars, you'd have all those people. Are you saying we're going to be driving cars and killing each other? And are you saying we're going to take a fax machine and we're going to send a piece of paper somewhere?
Right.
And more importantly, like, again, getting back to what we're talking about, are you going to put 300 people on a plane and fly them across the country, across the world, on a fuel jet? No. Right. It's never going to happen. So, we went from the Wright brothers, in 100 years, we're putting people on the moon, or we're going to the moon. It's crazy.
It's wild. Yeah.
So what's going to happen in the next 100 years?
I know who knows on that one. Now, we've been looking at some distant technologies. I'm going to bring this up here, but now checkpoint screening technology is really maturing, isn't it, Stephen? Because I'm seeing a lot of new machines, for example, put into airports, and I'm also seeing at like concert venues and stuff a whole new type of metal detector that can like read stuff in your pockets, and you don't have to take it out anymore. So I thought that was an interesting aside. How are you seeing checkpoint screening technology today and in the immediate future?
Well, we started out with the metal detectors, and the first metal detector was used in 1970 at the New Orleans airport, and by 72, all airports were required to use them to, of course, catch weapons that were coming through.
Right.
And then we moved to the advanced imaging technology, which is the technology where you go in, and you hold your hands up. That's right, and you hold still. And that came about, because of the underwear bomber. So the underwear bomber got on a flight flying from Amsterdam, I think it was to Detroit. And interestingly, this particular terrorist was a part of a program where you had to sort of live with the underwear bomb for days and weeks on time, so that you didn't, you weren't uncomfortable, didn't show any of your discomfort. And so when he got on the plane, his hygiene was the first thing that gave him away, because he had been wearing this thing forever. And then when he tried to light the fuse, it would not light again because of the damn hygiene. And fortunately, passengers jumped him. And so this technology came about where we can detect non-metallic as well as metallic masses on folks. And so what's happening is these algorithms are continuing to be improved and enhanced to be able to detect more and more things. LAX and Las Vegas now have advanced imaging technology machines where you actually go in and hold your hands down, and there's some enhanced algorithms that are able to pick up even more items. So we're just going to continue to get better that way.
And Stephen, my guess is it will also lower false positives, because
I've had
a couple instances where I go through that and then they're like patting me down because something came up that wasn't there.
50% drop is what we're seeing with some of our early tests. Yeah.
Wow. And again, that speeds things up, makes it more convenient for customers. And in places like Las Vegas on certain days of the week, like
that's right,
Sunday afternoon, for example, you really want to move those people through there. And I'm sure your airport in Atlanta would be thrilled to have any new technologies.
That's right. And you all know security is our primary mission, but customer experiences and passenger experience is not too far behind it, y'all. So the more that we can guarantee our security with identity verification and detection of threats, and then keep people moving through faster, we keep the public safe and happy, and our airport and airline partners as well.
But the public also has got to help you. I love the people that pat me on the back and say, "Can I go through? I'm late for my flight." I was like, "Okay." Now, one or two things happen. You got up late, or you got up late. That's what happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If you got into, I've had problems where, I don't know, my car didn't come or whatever, and I've been delayed an hour, and I'm like skipping through the airport, like, okay, I'll be there because I have plenty of time. There was a flight delay remember when Delta, probably like 8 years ago, the entire system went down for like 5 hours, and I was supposed to be in Chicago at an ad sales event for Travel Channel. It was a big deal. I was getting on the thing with the president, on the stage, and I decided to go at 6 a.m. in the morning in case my flight was delayed, so I'd still be there on time. So even with that 4 or 5 hour crash, I sat in the Delta Lounge. I had 3 breakfasts. I did all my emails. I relaxed, and I got there on time. So if you need to do something important, get there early, even if it's the day before. And you got to, there's a responsibility to the traveler as well as just putting it all on, the airport.
Anthony, thank you for saying that, because it's like the traveler's frustrations all converge in the checkpoint. It doesn't matter, you had an argument with your spouse, traffic was awful, your dog ate something, the airline maybe didn't provide the customer service that they needed. The cars were backed up as you were getting to the airport, whatever it is. But by the time they get to us, it's like they have amnesia, and we are the reason that they are not getting to their flight. So I appreciate that, Anthony, that call for folks to have a little bit more.
My favorite. I actually said this to a man. I was probably a couple of years ago, and the weather was really bad, and I was missing something relatively important. I can't remember what it was, but it was important. I don't travel unless it's something I'm getting paid for or something important to me. So I'm there, and there was bad weather. Mm-hmm. So now we have to be we have to go the next morning. So so anyway, I had made arrangements, and it was like, and I said to the man who was berating this person at the counter, I said, would you want to die or would you want to get there late? Make a decision.
That's right.
I want to get there. I want to get there, safely. I don't want to die in a plane crash because the weather's bad. When you're yelling at a person behind the counter because the plane's not taking off because the weather's bad, that's a problem for me.
That's a problem. My mentor always encouraged me to create margin, time margin in your life, Stephen. And he started it, but a judge finished it for me, where I arrived somewhere at 9 a.m. because the hearing was 9 a.m. And before we started, the judge asked me to stand up and said, Mr. Parker, what time is it? And I very proudly and confidently said 9 a.m., Your Honor. And he's like, arriving in my court at the time of the hearing is late. You've got to arrive here before then. And so between my mentor and the judge, I now live by that principle of
early is on time is late, and late's unacceptable.
There you go. I think he said something like that, Anthony.
Yeah, and it's Mark Summers said that to me once, even though I was very early because he was earlier than me. But and that's what it comes down, and that's what it comes down to. You can't. I like the margins. Give yourself margins, and in anything in life, right? You have to give yourself flexibility so you don't add to the stress of life. Is stressful enough. When you add to your own stress, then you're just putting that stress on other people.
That's it.
Yeah. So how are you seeing relationships with hotels and other entities when it comes to innovation? For example, not a hotel, but I had the opportunity to experience the PS Lounge at LAX, and I know they're opening up other ones in addition. That's an opportunity for folks to avoid the main terminals, pay a fee, and have more of a luxury experience. Say if you're a celebrity that doesn't want to be shot, taken pictures of by TMZ, and then you can go through private area that gets through TSA and stuff like that. So how do you see those things maybe and partnering with the hotel business in a more meaningful way?
Yeah, and that's our reimbursable screening services program. So that's Congress allowed us to run a pilot program where we can have 8 locations where private entities can set up shop adjacent to an airport, allow folks to, for a fee, get screened there, relax, lounge, as you've described, Glenn, and maybe we'll get a little bit more description of, you've actually experienced that. I'd love to hear your experience about it. And then get driven right out to the plane. Mostly the justification is like in LA, celebrities can cause disruption at an airport, walking through an airport. In New York, the home of the UN, we have a lot of foreign dignitaries, and perhaps there's a safety concern. And so if they can sort of lounge and be screened off site and then taken to their airplanes, there's less disruption there as well. I recently spoke to the Historic Hotels Association, and that very question came up about how could this work for us? And one of the examples I gave was that Tampa has an arrangement where at the rental car center, once you return your vehicle, you can bag your tag at the rental car center. And then, and it's a deal that they have with several of the airlines, not all of them, but several of them are set up there. They will take your bags and they will transport them for you. So you drop the car off, you get on whatever the transit is to get you to the terminal, and you're off and running. I can imagine something like that for the hotels where they will set up but that would be a partnership I can imagine that they'd have to have with the airports and the airlines.
Stephen, let me jump in there because I think that's already been done. I don't know if it's still happening, but Disney's Magical Express had a service where they would get your bags on the way to the property, but then you'd check them on property with some airport designate or something like that. Then they put it into like a steel container or something like that, and it'd go off and it gets screened at the airport, and then your bags would just come out at your final destination. So you didn't have to carry them on. You didn't have to worry about going on that one line when you get to the airport. And I thought that was really a smart customer focused initiative that works in a place like that because of the high volume.
That's right. I think that's right. And this program, this RSSP program, could also work where you need to have sort of a secure, sterile area that that you need for some amount of time. So if you've got an Olympic Village, say, we're thinking that this program ultimately could be one where folks leave the airport and they go straight to another sterile environment because they're going to stay in the village while they're competing. And so if a hotel was hosting dignitaries over a weekend, no one's leaving the property. I mean, this could also have some application there.
Right. That's interesting. And that really heightens the customer experience, because one of the problems that I think people have is that feeling of having to go through security constantly takes away from your enjoyment of just living your moments,
That's right. That's right.
So is there any technologies, because LaGuardia was basically reinvented, is there any technology that LaGuardia was able to put in that you're really not seeing in other airports right now that maybe you'll see in the future? And what's going on at LaGuardia? Is it? Go ahead.
Yeah, there was one. That's Anthony. That's sort of like picking a random number and saying, "Tell me about the number 27." What do you know about the number?
Tell me about the number 27.
Except that, fortunately, I have had a recent trip to LaGuardia earlier in the year. I accompanied Delta and LaGuardia there because Delta was looking at having a bag, the place where you can place your bag and tag it without any assistance, and then step up and be able to confirm who you are, and then leave your bag.
Because right now, even if you go to the kiosk and get a tag, you have to bring it to a human being who then has to verify your identity. Right? That's
right. So there's a pilot program that's happening there. But your Spirit is also doing that. I can't recall in the moment what airport they're doing that at, but you're able to go, and it's a whole contactless effort. So that's one of the things that I saw when I was at LaGuardia last, and that was several months ago.
Right. And those of you who don't know, LaGuardia has been completely rebuilt. I mean, they built a whole new airport on top of an existing older airport that now President Biden called one of the worst airports in the country. And that kind of like moved that process along. And I'll tell you, Stephen, the first time I landed there, I didn't even realize I was in New York. It's so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. So what new tech is in development?
We're rolling out primarily the CT computer tomography X-rays. So these are scanners that will allow an operator to see the baggage on a screen in a 3D fashion, and they're able to. And I've actually had a chance to do this myself. You can rotate it, you can slice it, you can look through it. So those are being rolled out, and there was a backlog of them. Because sometimes what I'll hear is folks saying, "Well, at this airport, we don't have those, or we've got to follow these certain procedures, or whatnot." And it's an issue of sort of deployment of this new technology, getting it fully out to all the airports. And so we're seeing that. That's like the latest that we're seeing with technology there. And then the other is when you encounter our folks for the first time at the Travel Document Center. That is, you walk up and the officer verifies who you are. In the beginning, he would just take your ID. He or she would take your ID, look at you, look at your ID, look at you, look at your ID, and then allow you through. But because there's so much fraud that happens with identification, we eventually developed this credential authentication technology where you take your ID, it goes into a scanner, and then the person's information shows up, and then the individual, the TSO, the Transportation Security Officer, is able to verify the ID, verified by what comes up on the screen and the person standing in front of them. The next generation, which is being piloted in 16 airports, is the Credential Authentication Technology 2, CAT 2. And with that one, travelers simply come up, show their face, they insert their ID, show their face, and then there is a one-to-one match that AI is verifying that the person in front of us is the person who is in our system. And that procedure has shaved off 10 seconds. So that interaction with Cat 1 is around 18, 20 seconds. And now we're seeing that it's dropping below 10 seconds.
Wow.
And so that too helps with throughput. And again, with passenger experience, folks can opt out. They don't have to show their face. Most people think there's a privacy issue that we're collecting data on them. But with this technology, it is literally a one-to-one match.
Well, the fact is, I mean, if we really want to break it down, everybody has our photos. I mean, besides Anthony being like a magazine cover star, it's on my driver license, right? You already know what I look like. And I know that you're using that kind of ID to become more secure as well. Where are we at with real ID? And I should say, are we really going to make the deadline this time?
Yes, we are. And I know folks chuckle when it comes down because the deadline has been moved several times. The new deadline is May 7th, 2025. I'm happy to report that all 50 states, DC, and 5 territories are all compliant with Real ID. So when folks are renewing, in some of these states are asked to provide additional information to verify that they are who they are. But we have compliance across the country.
That's fantastic. And I believe that's the first time anyone's been able to say that on this show in a number of years, which means to me that you really are going to make this.
So if I want Real ID, what do I need to do? Go to my, because I need to get it. I need to go to my.
Your DMV, that's right. You go to your DMV and you'll just be required to show additional verification documents. So that's right.
Right. So I think, Anthony, check ahead of time because I think you might need a birth certificate or some other form.
Passport, some other verification documents. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, very cool. So let me ask the question that, I ask questions that sometimes are not relevant to our conversation, as Glenn knows. But one of the things I don't understand is I'm in a lounge. I'll just say a lounge. I went through security and then they hand me cutlery. And it's not plastic. It's a sharp knife and it's a fork. And it's a fork. Like why? Can we stop doing that?
First of all, Anthony, I don't qualify to be in lounges, so I don't totally know what that experience is like.
Right. I want you to know.
I'll invite you in.
Stephen and I, we chatted about this beforehand. They have, specific amounts of money they're allowed to spend, and that does not include lounges or any fluff
or business class or
nothing.
Yeah. So it's a very fair question, and seriously, Anthony, I've not had that experience, so the thought of that had not occurred to me that someone might be able to take some cutlery from a lounge and board a plane with it.
Well, to be fair, nobody
that's something you should bring up
anyway, so it doesn't really matter.
That's something you should bring up in your next meeting.
Yeah.
I'll do that. I'd like to think that maybe folks who are in the lounge maybe have qualified as trusted travelers, and therefore are people of conscience. We won't assume this, right? Can't assume it.
But Glenn is in that lounge, so don't assume it.
Okay, don't assume it.
If they let me in, who knows who they're letting in over there. And I want to thank Anthony now for my having to eat with my hands in 2026 whenever I go to a lounge. So I appreciate that.
Watch out for it. That's right.
Yeah. So, Stephen, how do you negotiate change in a governmental organization? Because your whole thesis is inspiring and setting the stage for innovation, but government is not necessarily known for innovation. So how do you move it along?
That's right. I think something that's been instructive is the Defense Innovation Board recently did assessment of the Pentagon and to determine how innovative it is. It was concluded that there's room for growth in innovation, but it identified 3 essential ingredients to promote innovation. One is you have to have urgency. So the urgency of protecting our country against the foreign threats and insider threats, for that matter, has to always be put in front of folks. Secondly, you've got to have accountability at the top. That is the Secretary of Defense and Undersecretary. In our case, the administrator and deputy administrator have to be your biggest champions. So they have to, at every opportunity, be promoting innovation, inviting our workforce to share their ideas and their solutions and support me in creating pathways to do that. And thirdly, you have to have talented staff who are passionate about the work. So that's instructive for us. And so our primary flagship effort is creating these teams around the country. We have lift cells that are these local teams of employees who get together and talk about the challenges and opportunities that they have in their on the front lines at their workplace. And when then we've created a platform where they can sort of vet their ideas. And most of the time they're coming up with things that they can solve right there tactically, locally. Sometimes they'll come up with something that's more of a national breadth. And so then that's something I would take and advocate at headquarters. So how are we doing it? We are empowering these teams and encouraging them to take small bets. We've come up with this innovation doctrine that we published in October of 2022. It is the first of its kind in federal government, where it creates this framework for empowering the workforce and inviting folks to be innovative. And so we're relying on that to encourage people to take small bets, to take risks. And if they get in trouble, give me a call and I'll provide cover on us trying new things. Awesome. So we're getting a pretty good feedback from our folks on that. But so this sort of bottom up innovation is a movement we're trying to create. We've got to have the support at the top. We do. And I travel quite a bit, evangelizing the doctrine and encouraging folks to get in the game in that way.
What is the one thing you learned as a defense attorney? You said a defense attorney, right?
I was a corporate litigation attorney. So I real estate, intellectual property, and product liability were in my portfolio.
What's the one thing you learned as a lawyer that helps you in your job now?
The critical thinking aspect of it. So really being able to look at the opportunities that are in front of us and be able to look at it from all angles. It has also hamstrung me as a lawyer, because on the innovation side, you have to be very comfortable with iterating. You got to be comfortable with not having the perfect product out. And again, the administrator supports our efforts in that arena as well, and suggested we're not looking for a perfect product. Get something that's working, iterate on it, and then make adjustments if it needs an adjustment. So my career as a lawyer has helped me really be able to just identify and look at things from different angles. And again, it's hamstrung me in the beginning because our work is a little bit more linear, and innovation is not a linear process.
Yeah,
that is correct.
Well, I will say I'm seeing a lot of great things coming from the TSA, and I recently came into the country through Global Entry and our friends at Department of Homeland Security, and they're doing little iterations. I haven't traveled internationally in a while, but now they show you a picture of your luggage at the check-in counter as opposed to further along in the process, which is great. I think that saves some time. And then Global Entry, you don't have to get a form anymore. I just put my face up on it again, and it knew everything. I just had to, agree that I didn't do anything, and boom, I was able to walk in. It was so easy that I had to talk to the Border Patrol agent because I thought I did something wrong.
Well, I have actually, guys, on Friday, I have my conditional approval interview for my Global Entry. So I was sort of a latecomer, but I'm looking forward to having that chat and getting that under my belt. And so then I can
get that. Global Entry is absolutely fantastic, and it's a great way to avoid those lines coming back into the United States. I saw that the line when I was coming back in from the Bahamas a couple of weeks ago was a good half hour, 45 minutes for folks that didn't have any special programs. I was through like that. It took longer for me to say why to get through so quick. Why did I get through so quick than by actually getting through?
Well, and why not kill two birds with one stone? If you get Global Entry, you also get pre-check.
Which is
the reverse is not true just yet. We're looking into that, but so you get Global Entry, and then you've got pre-check, and even if you don't travel much internationally, you've got two for the price of one.
Yep, and then lay it on with one of their great partners, such as Clear, for even faster expedited service. Stephen, anything else that you want to say or put out there that we might not have touched?
One of the pilot programs we're looking at is OneStop Security, so that if you've got a flight and you have a layover in this country, so if you're flying from London and you're laying over at LaGuardia and headed to LAX right now, you have to deplane, go get
Mhm.
your bag, have it run through security again, and then go on to your flight, and then you head on to LAX. Well, we're working with a couple of partners now, London and Incheon as well, where we are trying to establish similar standards of screening. And so that when people do fly in and have a layover, you don't have to touch your bags. We'll have the same screening standards so that we can view the baggage in the air, because the images meet the same standards that we have, and we can examine those. And if there's anything we need to pull, then you may have to get your bag and go through again. So that's one thing.
I've only had to do that a few times, and each time I did it, it was very stressful.
Yeah, because it takes
Yeah.
a whole lot of time, right?
Yeah, it's a
So,
lot.
Stephen, how do you envision that changing the process of someone going through Department of Homeland Security to get entry to the United States, but not have to go back through like a TSA security checkpoint? Does that make sense to you? Because right now, like I see at JFK, people all come into the United States. They have to wait online. They get approval to come into our country. They fetch their bags. They go, they recheck their bags. Then they have to go back through a TSA checkpoint. But if they're already in the airport and checked, perhaps there's an opportunity to save resources and not have to go.
I think we will see that. I think we'll see that coming as well. As long as folks are staying in the sterile area, if you've got to leave, yeah, and
Well, I mean, if you go out, if you
but
want
different,
to
but also,
obviously, yeah.
but also different countries have different standards.
That's
So
right.
when just because they're pre-checked or they're checked in that
Right.
country coming through doesn't mean they're being checked appropriately.
Right, but I guess you could, and we're just spitballing here. Like we have visa waiver nations, we can have other waiver nations where you go through one lane as opposed to another lane or something like that. So there are definitely solutions to all of this. Stephen, how about wrapping it up into a nice little bow for us and sending us off with some great feelings about what you guys are doing at TSA?
Yeah, well, I will assure you that we are clear about our mission, and that is to secure all of our transportation systems. And I'm just really pleased too that the focus on customer experience is very strong now as well. And what you're going to see is a very strong effort at us making sure that we are focusing on throughput, supporting our industry partners on reducing wait times, and having you have a great experience as you come through the checkpoint. But I want to encourage everyone who's listening and viewing to compliment a transportation security officer on your next flight. It is a very difficult, stressful job to handle the traveling public in the way that we do. So make it a point to say something nice to an officer the next time you travel.
Thank you for saying that. And every single time I go through, I always look at the person manning the machine and I'm like, hey, thank you. I appreciate you. 9 times out of 10, they're shocked that someone's talking to them.
That's right. That's right.
I say thank you to every one of them every single time. Unless very rarely you run into somebody, maybe he's not having a good day, and I put a smile on my face and say hello and try to get them out of their bed then.
Yeah. Oh, Stephen, I totally forgot. Dave just reminded me, producer Dave backstage. I saw one airport, I can't remember what it is, that they're letting non-ticketed passengers in again. So you could go and welcome people coming off a plane, et cetera, et cetera. Is that something that you guys are trying to figure out as well to bring it to other places?
I would love to know which airport that is, because I'd love to.
I gotta figure it out and go back in my mind. All the airports.
Yeah. Because I've not seen that yet. So
I know
I'd love
obviously it creates another complication and adds more people going through, which you're
That's
trying
right.
to avoid. But
That's
it
right.
would be nice to bring travel back to the day when like people can meet you at the gate. I mean, the sitcoms still allow you to do it. Why can't the real world?
I remember those days, y'all, when we were able to do that. Yeah.
I mean, what happens when you suddenly realize you have to tell someone you love them and they're headed off to another country? You know,
That's right.
Text them.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's a good point.
That's what we do. Yeah.
Stephen Parker, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate you.
You guys have been great. I enjoyed this very much. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have you back again for sure. Take care.
You.
We're the best in the business for a reason, Stephen.
Yeah, baby. Because of guests like you, Stephen, not because
right.
of our hack approach to
No, no, it's definitely not based on us.
All right. If you guys liked what we had in store for you today, then I would highly recommend you going ahead and downloading all of our content. Sorry, I'm having trouble bringing that up. That content is boom. Oh, sorry, you did it for me, and I didn't even realize it. My hands are up. Put it back up.
We have two producers, and, yeah, there you go.
And 2 producers and 1 idiot. That would be me. Make sure you follow us on the audio wherever you get your podcasts. We are there. And if you're listening to us on audio right now, why not follow us and see our pretty little faces? Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, all of those great places. And of course, find all our database of shows at novacancynews.com. All right. So that was great. Thank you so much.
That was great.
Yeah. And remember, you got one life. So blaze on and
be kind to yourself.
excellent. See you all later.